Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe here from my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And we're back here at Brothers Arda with the continuation of our reading of the story of Beren and Luthien. Now, the thing with Luthien is that she ends up, it's described, finding out about how Beren had fallen into the hands of Sauron, or as he's called here, Ch2. I prefer Gorthor. So I'll use Gorthor. Sounds cooler. More evil and whatnot. Now, she apparently decides, I must ride to him. I must go to him. Now, in any other piece of fiction, you'd be going, yeah, and what are you going to do, princess? And I'm actually going to be honest, this is something I've grown utterly fatigued about from modern fairy movies and fairy story movies. They'll usually have the characters express too much doubt. Like, oh, what are you going to do? Well, golly, I'm going to... And, it gets really annoying and you have a 10-minute scene and you're just like, you know what? No. When she says, I must ride to him, why not have the character say, all right, let me get the horses ready. Rather than having this semantic-filled 10, 20-minute scene where they try to be funny. You know what I mean? Oh, and then, of course, the princess ends up being the action hero in those. And they have no reason to be. When they're incompetent, stupid, and generally just, well, as it's called, girl bosses. But the thing with Luthien is that she's none of these things. She's much more complex than that. She is, in reality, the half-goddess daughter of Thingol, one of the very first elves who ever lived. She is beyond special and important, so that, her having all these abilities and being able to save the day kind of makes sense. But it's almost exaggerated, but you can definitely see that this elf princess is really much more extraordinary than possibly any other character in Tolkien's entire legendarium. And Sauron really doesn't come out looking too good in this part of the story. Gorthor. I gotta remember, I gotta call him Gorthor, not Sauron. Imagine if I did that throughout the entire Ring Lords podcast.
Gorthuron?
No, Gorthor. Don't be gay. Don't
okay,
go,
you're right.
No. That sounded stupid. But the thing with her is that she ends up escaping. I mean, like, blunders into Celegorn. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, yeah. Now, she was imprisoned in a house in a tree, it says, but might as well say tree. It was enchanted. Runs into Celegorn on the borders of Doriath. And the thing is, she was trying to, from what I understand, get to Nargothrond. And she's taken there. And Curufin, the crafty, as he's called here, is enamored with her beauty. Or, basically, simply put, falls into lust for her. And from her story, they learn that Felagund has been captured by Gorthor. And, well, they intend to let him die and marry Luthien to Curufin. So that they can basically pretty much... hold her over a barrel, hold her over Thingol so that they hold him over a barrel. Sorry for the stutter there. The trouble is that they have kind of bitten off more than they can chew. And they don't intend to go for the Silmarils just yet. And they will not suffer any others to go for it, so that it really calls into question their dedication to their oath. But they will have to fulfill it eventually. The trouble is, while they're focused on her beauty and on Thingol, she ends up focused on Huan. Huan is my favorite character ever. I'm joking. He's the celestial dog, or I should say, he's a Maiar, or so goes the rumor, spirit who took on the shape of a dog. He's basically the doggy spirit of the universe, as Lexi, I think, once said. And he was gifted to Kelegorm as a companion by Orome. And, of course, Huan decides, he comes to love Luthien and he decides he's going to help her. So she ended up probably feeding him doggy treats and taking him out for walks while they were being idiots. I'm joking. Now, meanwhile, Gorthor has been slaughtering his captives one by one till only Felagund and Beren are left. So Felagund, of course, breaks loose from his bonds, kills the werewolf with his bare hands, but dies in the midst of this battle. So Beren ends up mourning his death, and of course Luthien comes along and starts singing outside the dungeons. And what's so interesting is that she beguiles Gorthor as well. So, at first sight, Huan came to love her. At first sight, Curufin falls into lust for her. And at the sound of her voice, and at the sight of her, Gorthor basically desires her as well. What Tolkien's doing here is showing that the desires of the villains are base and the desires of the heroes are true. But what he's also doing is showcasing just how beautiful Luthien is. Everyone who comes near her is enchanted by her. Completely and utterly. And I know... now, Arwen ends up being compared to her, but all know that Arwen is not as beautiful as Luthien. Luthien is far more special. And what's more is that Luthien seems to have a... how do I put it? She's much more forceful than Arwen, and far smarter, it seems. And this is not to speak ill of Arwen, but it's just... Luthien is just that much more special. And I know people really like Galadriel, but Galadriel's nothing compared to Luthien. And yet Luthien remains a very feminine character. She doesn't ever pick up a sword. She doesn't ever girl boss her way through. And at a few points she even needs Beren to save her, and at a few points Beren does basically everything. And obviously she ends up becoming desired by Morgoth, who decides that he'll offer any great treasure or reward for her capture. And in turn, we get a showdown between Huan and Gorthor. And it just doesn't end well for him. He's utterly humiliated and has to slip away from Huan. So we now know Huan is far more powerful than Sauron.
He is a representative of dogs. The only thing more powerful than Huan would be Luthien.
Because she has the doggy treats.
Exactly.
Okay.
You don't
but
don't mess with dogs.
Yeah. But that being said, you can see that Tolkien was a dog person here. But his son, I think Michael, was a massive dog lover. And it's for him that Tolkien wrote the Roverandom, I think it's called. Because his son lost his... I think their dog died or something, and his son was pretty heartbroken. And lost a dog toy as well or something. And Tolkien wrote a story for him. And here, that love persists. I imagine that Edith must have loved dogs as well, because there seems to be... I suspect that there's something here. Because remember, he wrote this story for her. So having a dog who'd fight for her and kill for her and defeats a deputy of the Dark Lord, I'm suspicious that there was something done here for her sake, and that it was done to entertain her and please her in a way.
Very likely, because if he dedicated the story to Edith,
Very likely he also read the story to her and whatnot.
so her being a dog lover would make perfect sense.
Yeah, I just have a sneaking suspicion. And that said, Juan, of course, returns to his master. And, of course, the two aren't fond of each other. And Beren still wants to send Luthien back. Which doesn't go over well, so what ends up happening is Kurufin and Celegorm make another try. Juan shifts sides and stays with Luthien. And, of course, Beren takes down Kurufin and nearly kills Kurufin, while Celegorm is nearly killed by Juan. So instead, Beren strips Kurufin of... because Luthien doesn't want him to kill, because what's interesting here is we get the sense that Luthien's very innocent and naive. Going, no, don't kill. And Beren shows mercy when he probably shouldn't. And let's be honest, there will be a reason to regret this act. Because it's Kurufin and Celegorm who will join in on the kinslaying that will end up resulting in the death of the son of Beren and Luthien. So Celegorm and Kurufin kind of have the last laugh on Beren and Luthien. So this is, in a way, you can say Luthien's fault, because she pleads with Beren and she can't stand the sight of blood. So she stops him from doing the right thing, and that's killing Celegorm and Kurufin. And the reason I say it's the right thing to do is because these two have tried to rape her. They've tried to commit a great many acts of killing and murder, and they will do more. They've tried to usurp the throne of Nagrafund. They're guilty of the highest treason. There should be no mercy for them. But this is where we see that Beren has the courage to do what needs to be done, and Luthien doesn't. So we have her kind of, for lack of a better term, cucking out on it. And she doesn't have the stomach. And if you pay attention, she doesn't kill anyone. She refused to kill Sauron. She refuses to let Celegorm and Kurufin die. And, later in the story, they have Morgoth at their mercy. So, while we should look at her as being a fairly strong character, we should also bear in mind that she defeats all the major characters, her and Beren. But at no point does she even consider, doing what should probably be done. And I know that's not a popular thing to say, but she does kind of balk. And this is where Tolkien shows the contrast between her and Beren. Beren is willing to do it. He's more than happy to do it. The trouble is she doesn't. Because, honestly, she's not a warrior. And what he's doing here is showing the contrast. She's very feminine, but she's also not a warrior at her core. She's a princess, she's daddy's little girl, and she just wants love. While Beren is a guy who's had to fight and scrap to survive. He's basically Robin Hood. He's had to kill to survive. And do very ugly things. So for him, killing Kurufin and Celegorm for treason and trying to take advantage of her comes naturally. It's the most natural thing in the world for him to do. But, we have here this kind of conflict within the story. And it's resolved in her favor because here we have a medieval theme of the maiden protesting and begging for mercy, and the hero or king basically doing it, showing mercy. It was considered the proper thing to do, the chivalric thing to do. So this is a very chivalric moment. It's not one I exactly approve of, but it's there. But on the other hand, if you consider the idea of the fallen world, which is a very Catholic theory, and even Shintoist, when you consider Japanese philosophy, the idea is that we live in a fallen world. And that, from that perspective, what Beren did is the actual right thing to do. And what Luthien was doing was protecting Beren from himself, in a way. To an extent. Like, yes, killing these two would still be right, and he'd still get to go to heaven. But, if he repented later. But showing mercy is the better thing to do. And the fallen world theory will say, yes, they will go on to kill his children. This is the most likely result. But that doesn't mean you should go outright murdering people. Just because people will do that to you doesn't mean you have to do it to them. And the notion is that, it's a fallen world, life sucks, but you'll be rewarded in heaven for your suffering. This is the idea. So you've got kind of different ideas at play here. Naturally, Tolkien balances them all very well and tells a great story with very complex characters. Now, when I criticize Luthien for showing mercy the way she did to, in particular, Celegorm and Crúthyn, it's not that I dislike her. Actually, she's amongst my top 5 favorite characters. But this is a mistake that you don't see Éowyn making later with the Witch King. Or, let's say, there's not any, I don't think there's too many other female warriors in Tolkien's Legendarium. So, yeah, it's not something you see, for example, Valyria make from the Hyborian Age. This is a mistake that, it could come back to haunt you. But here, because it's a Christian story, you have to read it along those lines, in a way. And, of course, the couple then go on to Angband, where they're confronted by Carcarus, who is the wolf guardian of the gates to Angband. Now, Luthien sings to him in some versions, and in others sets spells into place and ensorcels him into a deep sleep. They then go in, she takes up her own name, and it's interesting that she walks straight in, not even hiding who she is or what she is, stomps her way up to Morgoth, and proceeds to dance. Like, the characters aren't even hiding. They just waltz in. And this is one of the most interesting parts of the story and one of the most intriguing ideas. Any other writer would have them sneak in and devise a great plan and whatnot. Tolkien plays on the fairy story element and just has them outright ensorcel Morgoth and sing to him until eventually the enchantment works its magic on him and he just watches her dance and falls asleep. Now, he's consumed by lust for her. He wants her. But the lust weakens him in a way, because this is not part of his original being as Melkor. Because Melkor was an ethereal being who did not have mortal flesh. But as Morgoth, he's subject to all the mortal problems. So, of course, he falls asleep, slams his face on the ground, and his crown falls off his head. Thoughts on this part?
That was quite the audacious plan.
Well, yeah, and it's such a mythological thing.
Yes, it's very bold. If he's going for fairy stories and for mythology, that's the approach you take.
Yeah. And
you don't need a great big battle and whatnot.
But what I'm proposing is most other writers would go the clever route. Sneaking in, tricking the Dark Lord, slipping around. But he just has them waltz right into the throne room. This is a key difference. Any other writer and it would fail, Dan. But under Tolkien, it works. But the thing is, of course, they then proceed to carve out one Silmaril, but then Beren gets greedy and decides to go for the next one. And Morgoth awakens, the pair flee, and of course the spell has stopped working because Luthien's no longer singing. And Carcarus wakes up, pounces at them, Beren gouges out his eyes, and Carcarus tears off his right hand. Ouch. But he bites off more than he can chew, so to speak, as he swallows. Okay, he did bite off enough that he could swallow. So, yeah, but he didn't chew on it. We know that much. He just swallowed it whole. There's a lot that can be said about watching what you eat. Now, he's not what he eats, so the Silmaril starts to burn his evil flesh from within. Ow! And Carcarus is tortured here. Doesn't have, I think, any clue what's in his stomach, and he started because it's burning and tearing at him, and he starts running around like a madman. You'd almost feel bad for him, but he's evil, so you don't care.
Yeah, he deserves it.
And of course, Beren and Luthien go back to Luthien's home. Now, by this time, Thingol had, interestingly, had his own arc. I know the Thingol haters will say, screw him. What arc? But he actually has an interesting one. As Thingol had apparently been told by Celegorm and Curufin that they had Luthien and Beren was dead. At the news of Beren's death, Thingol's kind of affected and feels bad and kind of sees it as, oh, I did kind of send him on a suicide mission. I did something wrong here. And it shows the goodness in Thingol's nature. He was just trying to protect his daughter. We should perhaps regard the later retelling of The Little Mermaid by Disney as taking cues from this story. In turn, though, it's obvious Tolkien was taking cues from the original Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid story, to an extent. But the thing is, Triton in the Disney version is obviously inspired and based off of Thingol, I think. Just as Ariel behaves a lot like Luthien. She has her singing and her adventurous spirit and all that, and her beauty and all that. It's obviously supposed to be Luthien in a way. But Luthien is... she's not with Curufin. And Thingol decides he's going to go rescue his daughter and begins to prepare for war against Naglfar. Oops. Celegorm and Curufin really screwed up there.
Oh, yes.
I told everyone that Beren should have killed the two of them when he had the chance. Yes, that might have evoked the anger of some, but I don't think Maethros would really decide to go kill Beren or Luthien or go hunting for them. He'd probably demand a Vergeld, but that'd be it. Because Maethros knows those two are evil, and he's not going to shed it. I think he'd shed some tears for what they once were, but I think he'd kind of accept the fact. They brought it on themselves. The trouble is, Carcarus is raging through the woods. Beren and Luthien make it back home. And at this point, Thingol asks Beren, "What of thy quest and of thy vow?" Then said Beren, "Even now I have a Silmaril in my hand." And Thingol says, "Well, show it to me." You have Beren, "Oh, that I cannot do, for my hand is not here." And you have Thingol, "Yeah, okay, you can wed my daughter." He's like, "You got me there." Like, that has got to be the best reaction ever from Thingol. It's like, well, okay, you got me there. I guess that's good enough for me. Like, he could have just said, "Nope, sorry, had to be attached to you and right here in front of me." But instead he says, "Okay, want to go hunting?" It's like, wow, okay. I don't think any character has ever done, in fiction, had to work harder to get their daddy-in-law's approval. Not protection, approval. And the thing is, the response from Thingol is also that he starts to like this kid. Of course, he's also moved by the love between Luthien and Beren. And of course, the two father-in-law and son-in-law go out hunting for Carcarus. They find him, and Juan and Beren die in the hunt, although they do manage to slay Carcarus. Beset by grief, Luthien then departs into the realm of Mandos, and there she ends up singing of her grief and her pain. And it so moves Mandos that he decides for the only time that she might take back what she's lost. And he lets Beren go. He's not supposed to, but he lets him go. And the two race back home. And as we know from other versions of the story, Thingol had fallen almost into a catatonic state, thinking he had lost his daughter and his son-in-law. And he awakens from it to find his daughter and his son-in-law before him. So the story has one of the only happy endings in all of Tolkien's stories.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful one.
It is. I don't really have much more to say on it. But Tolkien is obviously relying on mythological and folkloric themes and ideas. And it's a great story. It's one well worth reading. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out our other content, to check out our Stories on Railroad. If you want, I'm kind of writing a Silmarillion style of tale in Olimpnomachi. Or you could check out Beren Cub, which Dan and I have been working on together, both of which are linked down below in the description. So don't forget to subscribe to us on Railroad and to, follow our web novels. And to, of course, smash that like and that subscribe button here. And have a nice day.